Hi, I'm Vinny Lynch. I'm a sales and leadership coach who believes that there are easy fixes to your biggest sales problems. And today I'm going to give you some help and guidance on using the telephone and overcoming the most common objections in sales that you're going to come across in using the telephone. So, handling these objections, well, there's really only 4 to 5 kind of most common objections, and they are: no thank you, I'm happy with what I'm using at the moment, or I'm happy with my current supplier. I'm not interested, I'm too busy, or if you send me a brochure, I will have a look at it and I will get back to you. No thanks, I'm happy with what I have. Well, let's dig into this a little bit deeper. First of all, you got to remember that the status quo is always our biggest competitor. Essentially, a buyer or a company has gone through a process of finding a solution that works for them. And if it works okay, a lot of the time they won't revisit that area or relook to other solutions unless they believe, they want to do a comparison in price. They feel that they're not getting value. They feel that, it's broken. So a lot of the time they will just focus on fixing the things that are broken and work away with the other things that could kind of work well for them. So you are going to find this a lot. The status quo example that I use a lot is when the typewriter was first invented, the pencil and paper was the biggest competitor. And it took people a while to understand that really, in selling typewriters, you were essentially selling against the pencil and paper. Whereas initial salespeople who were selling typewriters may have seen this as a totally new thing, change the world, etc., etc. And they weren't embracing the fact that, the nearest competitor being the pen and paper, there were so many benefits above and beyond the pencil and paper. Secondly, the person at the other end of the line isn't picking up the phone to buy something from me, because if they were, well, we wouldn't be calling them in the first place. We're essentially reversing the process. We're going to them, we're creating awareness, we're interrupting their day, we're interrupting them from doing something else. So it's natural if you're interrupting someone, they weren't expecting to speak with you, they weren't expecting to speak about the topic, then, you're going to get pushback. So you have to accept that. So almost think about it on the lines of, I know I'm going to get pushback because this person isn't expecting my call today. If they were, they would have called me. So, an example I would give is of classic, initial pushback would be, that's great. Our response to the initial pushback would be, that's great. And we found this to be very, very normal. It's often the case with most new companies we work with. In fact, that we have found by getting a quote sheet for the product or service that you're currently sourcing, that we are competing against, that's a great way to start the conversation. So you look for something that you can grab, which makes it easy for them to get off the phone, but gives you what you need in order to come back to them. So classic would be office supplies or stationery, where they already have a quote sheet of what they buy, who they buy it from, and not necessarily who they buy it from, but what they buy, the volumes and the price. So once you have that golden nugget of information, you can then respond with a proposal of your own. Ultimately, you just want to get in the door, and remember that speaking intelligently to the target will often get them to speak intelligently back to you. So if you ask stupid questions, you're going to get stupid answers. So if I picked up the phone and said, are you happy with your current supplier? Well, I've lost control. I'm giving control to the other person at the other end of the phone, and they're going to grab it 9 times out of 10 and say, well, yes, we're happy, because they weren't expecting my call. Even if they are unhappy, they're probably going to say, well, that's a bit of a stupid question, so I'm not going to respond intelligently back to it. And don't show too much empathy. This comes across as cheesy, cheap, salesy. People, you can't be a stranger's good friend. You might be in time, but you can't be on that first or second call. So just, engage with them, try and share the value that you have and move on. But ultimately you want to keep them on your terms. So work out what it is you want to get from that first telephone conversation and be ready to ask it. So don't go in blindly picking up the phone and ringing people. Have a plan. Number 2, I'm not interested. Well, as I said a while ago, if they were interested, they would have called us. So a great response to that is, you know what, I'm not surprised to hear you say that. So I'm embracing that initial pushback. A lot of people had the exact same reaction when I first called them. Until they had the chance to see what our product was doing in action. So we work with companies such as your competitor or your peer, ABC, XYZ, and it all begins in a similar way. All we want to do is have an opportunity to talk you through the value on offer. That's why I'm calling you today. So, embrace the fact that they're happy with what they have, they're pushing back, and accept that, or share with them that this is normal. It's normal that people push back. All your best customers pushed back initially because they didn't know you either when you called them. So, this is normal. So normalize it. Number 3, I'm too busy. Well, don't ask when is a better time to call, because they're always going to take a chance to push you back. So I think ultimately, if someone says they're too busy, keep control by asking them for an appointment at a specific day and time. So, if someone says to me, I'm too busy, say, no problem, I won't take any of your time today. The only reason I was calling you was to make an appointment with you. Does next Monday at 9 a.m. work for you? If it does, they'll say yes. If it doesn't, they're more likely to either give you another time, or you can give a time. But don't ask them for a time, because if you ask them for a time, they've got to go and open their diary, even if they are interested in speaking with you. Open the diary, work out when they're free, and give you a time that works for them. So you want to make it as easy as possible. This will often lead to the target, on the phone, extending the conversation. And usually, if they're not happy, they'll at this stage come back in with the very first objection you got, which is, to be honest, we're very happy with the current supplier we use, or we're very happy with our current product. And you know what? We kind of know what to say in that scenario, because if you go back to the very, very start, the first objection, the way we would respond to that is, that's not unusual for us to hear you say that. That's the way usually all of my calls start, even with my best customers. And what I found is, when they got a chance to see the value of ABC or experience XYZ, like customer 123 or customer 789, then they wanted to extend the conversation further. So if we could meet at Monday at 9 a.m, even have a phone call at Monday 9 a.m, that would work that would help you understand the value that they're getting. So that's kind of an example of how you engage and how you keep the conversation going on your terms, where you maintain control. And ultimately, you want control. That's the only focus of this. You don't know them, you don't have a relationship with them, so you're just clutching onto having control. And number 4, send me on some literature, or send me a brochure. This is my favorite, because they don't care. 90% of the time, they will never look at it. Do not waste your time sending them a brochure. I always respond with, well, I could send you a brochure, but it wouldn't really put into context, the value for your business, which is why I'd like to get some time on the phone with you. Does tomorrow at 10 a.m. work? So ultimately, he took control, or she took control when they said, send me a brochure. And then I took it back by saying, well, no, I prefer to have a phone call. If you don't get the appointment, then usually they'll bring you back to that very first objection. They'll say, to tell you the truth, we're very happy with our current product, supplier, solution, etc. And then we know how to respond to this one, don't we? Yes, we do. We're back in control again, because we can say, that's not unusual for us to hear you say that, John or Mary. That's often the way conversations start with even our best customers. So you're normalizing their rejection as being normal in the context of even the best customers that you have, that it started that way for you too with those customers. So listen to the response. If they mention a supplier name, then embrace that and bring them back to the line you would have used, when they said they weren't interested, and say, very, very good supplier, very well, respected in the marketplace, some great solutions, but where we're different is ABC, and that's why we would like to share with you the value that our customers are getting from that difference, or from that differentiation. And remember, the first response is never worth fighting over. Very hard to build a relationship. They weren't expecting your phone call. If they were, they would have called you. So really, all you're trying to do is maintain control in the first response, or in the first call, to allow you to go to the next stage. And the next stage should be either a meeting face-to-face to go through your product, or a webinar, or a phone call, or something that allows you to engage with them to the next stage of what your sales process is. And ultimately, responses start to roll into each other. These objections that I've talked you through are the exact same that you will get over and over again. But the key to remember is there's only 3 or 4 lines that you need to remember, and you're always bringing them back to your anchor line. You're always bringing them back to that core value statement, which is, you know what, that's not unusual for me to hear you say that. That's the way even our best customers opened conversations with us. But when they got a chance to see the value or experience ABC, just like company XYZ, just like your peer company, etc., etc. And so that's really, what you're trying to do. You're trying to just maintain control. So remember, too much talk can be dangerous. The only reason you're calling is to get to a next step. You cannot sell, in 90% of cases, your product on that first phone call or your service. All you're trying to do is get to a dedicated next step, a committed next step. So once you get that, stop talking. Don't give yourself a chance to talk yourself out of it. And sometimes the prospect might say yes to a meeting and then start having a soft conversation with you. You let your guard down, and they then use it as an opportunity to qualify whether or not they actually should be meeting with you. And sometimes they'll actually pull out of the meeting, which is of no benefit to you. So don't overexpand in the conversation. And ultimately, no matter what the target says, even if it's an objection, just say, we should get together. Let's line up a call. Let's get that quote sheet in the example of a hard product, office product example. So you really want to just be conscious of the fact that you're only there to go from step 1 to 2, step 2 to 3, step 3 to 4. And you're not trying to do the A to Z of the sale. So I hope you found that useful, and you will be more prepared now than ever to handle the objections that you get in sales calls and even in sales meetings. Remember, you want to maintain control. It's very hard to sell in the first meeting. So just focus on bringing your sales prospect to the next step in your sales process. Normalize their objection. Explain to them that your best customers reacted in the exact same way. I hope you enjoyed today's Easy Fixes, Big Wins tip. And if you have any areas you'd like me to focus on, then please send me your request to info@vinnylynch.com, and check out my website, vinnylynch.com, and my sales course, The A to Z of Startup Sales.